Jacob in the land of Canaan. V'yagidu lo et kol hakarot otam lemor. And they told him everything that happened, saying. And it's interesting, there's a lot of reporting back and forth what happened, right? That in itself is different than the rest of Genesis. So the whole Joseph novella is different, it has a different sort of quality of prose, where the rest of Genesis is very succinct, concise, few words. Here, the narrative really expands in the sense of storytelling expands. Daber ha'ish adonai ha'aretz. So the master of the whole land spoke to us, Daber itanu, kashrot, in harsh terms. Vayiten otanu kimraglim et ha'aretz, and treated us as if we were spying on the land. V'nomer elav, and we said to him, we're honest. Lo hayim meraglim, we're not spies. Well, these guys are not honest, right? They may have been honest with Joseph, but they have not been honest at all. And they say, Shneim asar nachnu achim b'nei avinu. So we were 12 sons, the sons of our father. Ha'echad einenu, one's not, is missing, right? It's so funny. They don't say dead, which is interesting. One is missing. V'hakaton hayom et avinu be'eretz Canaan. And the little one is with our father in Eretz Canaan. 33. Vayomer Eilenu ha'ish adonai ha'aretz. And the ish, the man, it's a very interesting sort of way to refer him. He's a man without a name. And again, they're telling their father, the master of all the land, adonai ha'aretz. So it's very impersonal, and it's all about power. He just represents power. That's all he represents. Bezot eda ki chainim atem. In this, I will understand that you're honest or straight with me. Achichem ha'echad hanichu iti ve'et ra'avon batechem chu v'lechu. So one brother, leave with me, and food or let's see, something for your starving households, take and go. And then v'haviu et achechem hakaton elai, and bring to me your little brother. Ve'ed'a ki lo meraglim atem ki chainim atem. And this way I will know that you are not spies and that you are honest. So again, that word honest, right? Ki chainim atem. Et achichem eten lachem beta'aret tischaru. And I will give you your brother, meaning Shimon, and you can go freely around the land. Vayihi hem mirikim sakehem, vehine ish, and they were, as they were emptying their sacks, hine ish sror kaspo b'sako, and in each person's sack was their money bag. V'yir'u et sorot kaspeim hema va'avihem va'yir'u. When they and their father saw their money bags, they were dismayed. So in other words, they came home and they discovered their money bags, and they're dismayed because I think they already gave their money bags over to Joseph. So what are they doing back in their bags? Vayomer Eleihem Yaakov Avihem Oti Shikaltem Yosef. So this word, you have taken Yosef from me. That's what Jacob says to them, their father says to them, which is interesting because the Shikaltem word means refers to loss or even miscarriage, right? You've taken away my child. Yosef einenu, Yosef is not around. Again, it doesn't say Yosef died, which is really interesting because it reminds me of Yitzchak, what Yitzchak knew and didn't know, right? When he was facing Yaakov and saying, are you really Esau? Are you really Esau? Are you Esau? Right? So somewhere does Yaakov understand what's going on here? For Shimon einenu, and Shimon's not around, which is true because he's in Egypt. Ve'et Binyamin tikachu alai hayu kulanu. And now you would take away Benjamin? This is funny. These things always happen to me. It is true. Disaster happens to this guy, right? Disaster after disaster after disaster. Vayomer Reuven el aviv lemor et shnei banai tamit im lo avienu elacha. Reuven said to his father, my 2 sons you can kill if I don't bring Benjamin back to you. Tana oto al yadi, give him in my hand. Va'ani ashivenu alecha, and I will return him to you. Good morning. Vayomer, lo yared b'ni imachem. And so Yaakov said, my son will not go with you. Ki achiv met v'hu leva'ado mish'ar. Okay, let's just stop right there for a minute. For his brother is dead and he alone is left. What? He's got 10 other brothers. What do you mean he alone is left? I mean, that's such an insult. Jeremy, do you mind closing that up there? You see the meeting? Yeah, the meeting's being live streamed, yeah. So what are you saying? We don't count? The 10 brothers don't count? I think that's exactly what he's saying, and you'll see he'll say it again. Ukara'ahu ason b'derech asher telchu ba. And if he meets with disaster or something terrible on the journey, the Horadatem et Sevati v'yagon Sha'olah. You will send my white head down to Sheol in grief. Now, where have we heard sending my head down to Sheol in grief? In chapter 37, where the original disaster, at least in that family, occurred, right? Where Jacob refuses to be comforted in his grief for Joseph. Vayomer ki ered el b'ni avel She'olah. No, I will descend to my son in my grief to Sheol, which is some kind of underworld. Vayech oto aviv, and his father cried for him. So his father is focused on 2 sons, only the sons of Rachel, right? Joseph, who he's lost, and now Benjamin. So it's an incredible repeat of that moment. 22, I think it's 22 years ago, because it's after 13 years in Egypt, Joseph was taken out of jail, and then he went through 7 years of abundance, and the brothers show up in the 2nd year of the famine. So 13 plus 9 is 22. That's how I came to 22. Okay. All right, I'm going to take comments after we get through these next 2 texts, okay? So we're still in the backstory. We're not yet in our parsha yet. We're in Genesis 33, and now they're about to go, the brothers are actually about to go to Egypt with Benjamin. For we could have been there and back twice if we had not dawdled. Vayomer alehem Yisrael avihim. Im ken, efu zot asu, chu mizmorat haaretz b'kleihem, v'haridu la'ish mincham at sari ma'at dvash, nechot balot batnim ushkedim. Okay, so then their father Israel, note that the name Israel is being used here. If it must be so, do this, take some of the choice products of the land in your baggage, carry them down as a gift for the man, some balm, some honey, gum, ladanum, pistachio nuts, and almonds. The kesef mishneh k'hu b'yedchem, and take with you double the money. Ve'et hakesef hamusha b'fi amtechotechem, and take with you double, carrying back with you the money that was replaced in the mouth of your bags. Tashiv b'yedchem, ulai mishgehu. Perhaps it was a mistake. Ve'et achichem k'hu v'kumu shuvu el ha'ish. Take your brother too and go back at once to the man. So they're finally desperate for food. They can't hold out any longer. And Jacob finally agrees to send Benjamin, and here they go. Now, watch this. The El Shaddai yiten lachem rachamim lifnei ha'ish, and El Shaddai, a name of God, which is actually specifically used often in moments of a context of fertility or a need for fertility. El Shaddai yiten lachem rachamim will send compassion before the man, lifnei ha'ish. Again, no name. V'shilach lachem et achichem acher, that he may release you your other brother. What do you mean your other brother? He doesn't have a name? Shimon. He's not even worthy of naming? Oh my God. The Etz Binyamin and Binyamin. Bani kasher shakolti shakalti. And me, if I am to be bereaved, if I am to lose my children, I shall be bereaved. So now let's see what the Ramban says about this verse. It's very strange. So why isn't he naming Shimon? Derech, I don't know what this word is here with the question mark. Derech, maybe al derech hapshat, hilo hayat Shimon ratzui aviv. So this is the pshat, this is the simple meaning of this, that Shimon was not preferred to his father. Why? Ba'avur dvar Shechem. So in Shechem, because of the matter in Shechem, Shimon and Levi did this big massacre, and their father's still mad at them. So he just says, oh, your brother, not the name of the brother, right? And for this, he didn't say Shimon, my son, and Binyamin. Because he would not mention him by name. And also, he's been in Egypt for a lot of days. And now look at this. If Jacob and his family had enough food, lo shalach adayin et Binyamin, he would not have sent Benjamin. He would have left Shimon in Egypt. Who cares about Shimon? That's the depth of woundedness, of pain in this family, right? Shimon, stay in Egypt. Who cares? As long as I have to send Benjamin, if we have enough food and we can survive. But since our survival's on the table, I'll send Benjamin. Wow. Okay, but Rashi says something really interesting. Rashi Katav, and Ramban is quoting Rashi and explaining Rashi. Ruach HaKodesh nitznitza bo lerabot et Yosef. So there's some kind of spirit of prophecy, right? Nitznitza, I think, is referring to nitzutz, right? Sparks of prophecy, to include Yosef. How? And this is also mentioned in Breshit Rabbah in Midrash. Gam ken amru v'shilach lachem et achichem. So when he says, and maybe they will send your brother, he's meaning Yosef. He's not meaning Shimon. He's just not naming him here. And then when he says the word acher, that refers to Shimon. V'nachon hi hu ki natan da'ato be'et hatfilah l'hipalel stam gam al acher lai odenucha. So this is correct for at the moment of prayer. So Rashi's seeing this, or Ramban is really seeing this as a moment of prayer. Jacob directed his heart to pray in a general manner for the other one, Joseph, also for perhaps he is still alive. So I think Jacob actually knows somewhere he is still alive. He has that sense. Okay, so now we're up to our parsha finally. I'm going to see if there are any quick comments about this backstory, so that we'll see, like, what is Judah walking into here? What, sort of terrible dynamics, woundedness, and pain? And why does Judah's speech make a difference? What is it about what Judah says? And what can we learn from what Judah says? Okay, are there any comments? Oh, yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
I just noticed that in this view that he doesn't even want to mention Shimon's name, on the other hand, he trusts Reuven. Reuven, who was together with Shimon. No, it was Levi, right?
Levi.
Yeah, Levi. Sorry. My mistake.
Oh, so is that okay? So do you want to say something about this thing or no?
No. I'm just saying that he was trusting one brother who was involved in the incident.
Oh, I see.
And the other doesn't, but it's not the same brother anyway.
Oh, okay.
Why single out Shimon of all the other ones?
Well, they're singling out Shimon, but Shimon is the one who's in prison now. So that's why he's not even mentioning Levi.
Right, but on the other hand, he was trusting Binyamin's life to the other ones who were involved.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. But you mean he's trusting him to go and take Benjamin with him? Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah.
I see. But not specifically is he trusting Levi. He's trusting the group of brothers. Okay. Wendy in the room. I forgot I have my trusty little minute glass. So I'm just going to use that. So there's some sort of, so everyone's sort of on track. Okay, Wendy.
When it says that Shimon was not favored because of what happened in Shechem,
yeah,
you have to realize what happened in Shechem. was the rape of their sister.
That's true.
And so though the reaction of Shimon and Levi was extreme, it was in retribution to the rape of their sister, and that Jacob was willing to let it, go by.
Oh, yeah, no one
And-
was innocent in that story.
And so, yes, it was an extreme reaction, but
Yeah.
it was in defense of their sister. And it's interesting enough how Shimon is scoffed, but then later on, Levi, Moses comes from the tribe of Levi,
Nice.
and the Kohanim come from the tribe of Levi.
Uh-huh.
And yet Levi, later on, hundreds of years later, will become elevated.
Okay, great. Minute is up. Excellent. So, yes, you're right to point out the complexity. And here, I'm not defending anybody. I'm just saying this is how Jacob is treating Shimon, and the backstory is Shlem, and there's a backstory to the backstory, which is what you're pointing out. Excellent. Okay. Is there a source sheet? Yeah, Anna, can you drop the link in the chat, please? Okay. Beth and Paul.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
One thing that's interesting too is that the father isn't just diminishing his 10 sons, he's also diminishing his daughter. The whole incident in Shechem where the daughter is raped and then reacts to all of that destruction.
Oh, yeah. Everyone in his family has been devalued.
What's going to happen to me? So it's really egocentric.
Yeah, absolutely.
Father.
The depth of the dysfunction knows no end. Okay, Paul.
Just to add to that, the backstory behind the backstory is Rachel. And Rachel is dead and buried by the side of the road. What is going on with that?
Say more.
I have
Still have
nothing-
time.
It's a question. I mean, he is devoted to Joseph. He's devoted to Benjamin. Their mother, he buried by the side of the road and felt badly about it. He mentioned it later, but he did it. And it's killing me. Like, why did he do that?
Oh, that's interesting. You think I never thought about that as problematic because they were on their way.
But he
You couldn't
have,
bury her in Hebron. He could have taken her body with them. That's what you're saying.
yes, and he could have buried her with more pomp and circumstance. He makes
okay.
a deliberate point of saying, up by the side of the road.
Interesting. I have no idea, never thought about that question before. I will think about it, but thank you. But I will say that this is a fascinating story because from chapter 37 onwards to the end of the Torah, in the end of Genesis, chapter 50, there are barely any women. There's certainly no matriarchs. And at least Rachel died and was buried. Leah disappears, no death. Rebecca, no death, disappears. And Jacob clearly, loved his wife Rachel, who was Yifat Toar, who's described as beautiful, just the way Joseph is described as beautiful. Yifat Toar, right? In those same words. And there's always this bifurcation between Rachel's children and Leah's children, who are, to say the least, undervalued, to say the least. Okay, let's go back to our story. Now we're going to enter our parsha with all that. Okay, there we go. Let's get this thing out of the way. Okay, here we are. Vayigash. Asher, you want to jump in? You can't unmute? Anna, let everybody unmute themselves, please.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom. Vayigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda approached, confronted him. Vayomer, and he said, Bi Adoni, please, my Lord. Yidaberna avdecha davar be'oznei Adoni. May your humble servant please speak a word in the ear of my Lord. ואל יחר אפך בעבדיך, כי כמוך כפרעה. Do not be angry at your humble servant, because you are like Pharaoh.
Yeah, let's stop there for a minute, Asher Chaim. Excellent. So Vayigash, he approached, and that verb often appears like in crucial moments, like Yitzchak saying to Yaakov, come close, right? Come close so I can smell you. Also, this word abdecha, got to bold right there. Eved, the word Eved, I tried to count it and something interrupted me, so I didn't finish. But it's over 40 times the word Eved, servant, slave, is used in the Joseph story. I'm sitting there with a concordance counting, so sorry that I lost count. So it's a huge word, and it's interesting because almost like literarily, it's preparing us for the slide into slavery. Right? Next book opens up, Eved, we're abadim. Evan, you'll see, I tried to bold every occurrence, but it's again and again like multiplying uses of the word Eved. Okay, go on, Asher Chaim.
Adoni sha'al et avadav lemor, hayesh lachem av o ach? My Lord asked your humble servants, quote, do you have a father or brother? Vanomer el Adoni, yesh lanu av zaken v'yeled zakunim qatan. V'achiv meit, v'yivater hu levado le'imo, v'aviv ahevo. And we said to my Lord, we have an elderly father, and he has a young child of old age whose brother died, and so he alone remains from his mother, and his father loves him.
Great, let's stop there for a second. So this verse is notable for all the resonance from past narratives, past iconic narratives. Is really quite stunning. So one is, first, Yeled Zukuni Katan is from Genesis 37, when we hear about Joseph and how much Jacob loves Joseph. But then, V'yivater hu levado, he remains alone. Who also remained alone? Jacob remained alone before he was wrestling with the angel, right? That night, and then the angel comes. The Aviv, and his father loves him. So Jacob, of course, loves Joseph in chapter 37, but also, I think I might have a resonance of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, where it says, take the son that you love, and raise him up on a mountain that I will show you. Okay, go on.
Vatomer el avadecha, horiduhu elai. And you said to your humble servants, bring him down to me, ve'asima eini alav, that I may place my eye on him.
So the whole Egypt story, in end of Genesis, the family's going down and down and down, and that's also a word that's repeated, right? To take down, to go down, to be brought down. You can just feel them entering the depths of Egypt from chapter 37 onwards.
Go down, Moses.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Vanomer el Adoni, and we said to my Lord, Lo yuchal hana'ar la'azov et aviv, ve'azav et aviv v'ameit. The young boy can't leave his father. If he left his father, he would die.
And that's a resonance from Genesis, right? Al ken yazov ish et aviv et imo. So therefore, a man will leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife.
Ambiguity about Vamate, who's going to
Yeah,
die?
I was going to point that out. Yeah. Who would die, Jacob or Benjamin?
Oh, great question. Who's going to die? La'azov et aviv azav et aviv vamet. And if he left his father, he would die. The translator says his father would die, but it's not clear who would die. Right? So I think that maybe Jacob's referring to himself. Like if I'm going to lose my other beloved son, because the rest of you don't matter, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. That's it. I cannot survive this.
But Yehuda may be echoing the child who leaves his father and the child presumed dead.
What? I don't understand. Say it.
For Yehuda,
Yeah.
he may be reliving Yosef being separated from his father and Yosef presumed dead, that there's this enmeshment so that they can't live without each other.
Yes, absolutely. This is clearly putting us back into Genesis 37 and in that moment. Like they're in the same situation. Are they going to take a younger child and are the brothers going to take a younger child and be able to protect him or not? And are they going to destroy their father's life again? Right? They're in the same situation. So Judah's stepping into this moment. It's a replay, and through his speech, he's going to either sort of avert fate or play it out all over again. Okay, one more verse.
ותאמר אל עבדיך, אם לא ירד אחיכם הקטון איתכם, לא תוסיפון לראות פניי. And you said to your humble servants, if your little brother does not come down with you, you will not, Yosef, to see me again.
So they had no choice. They had to go, right? This is just chapter 37. And now let's go on with Judah's speech in Genesis 44, verse 24. You want to go on, Ashra?
ויהי כי עלינו אל עבדך אבי ונגד לו את דברי אדוני. And when we went up to your humble servant, my father, and we told him the words of my Lord, Vayomer Avinu, Shuvu, Shivrulanu Ma'at Ochel, and our father said, return and get for us a little food. Vanomer, Lo nuchal laredet, Im yesh achinu hakaton itanu v'yaradnu, Ki lo nuchal lirot pnei ha'ish v'achinu hakaton einenu itanu. But we said, we can't go down unless our little brother is with us, and then we can go down, because we can't see the face of the man if our little brother is not with us. ויאמר עבדך אבי אלינו, אתם ידעתם כי שניים ילדה לי אשתי. And your humble servant, my father, said to us, you all know that my wife birthed two to me. ויסה האחד מאיתי ואומר אך טרוף קורף ולא ראיתי עד הנה. The first left me, and I said, he has definitely been torn apart, and I haven't seen him until now.
Okay, well, let's stop here for a minute because there's a lot here. So first of all, the way Jacob's telling the story of his life is like, my wife had two kids, right? Like not my other one, not like, I've got this big family. My wife had two kids, and one went away from me, and I supplied the lie in the story, right? When his brothers presented Jacob with the coat of many colors dipped into blood, he said, oh, a wild beast must have eaten him. Now, that was true in the sense that if you think about the brothers were the wild beast, but it's interesting that at that moment, Jacob supplied the lie, maybe because he would prefer to do that than look at what his brothers did to his family and look at the implications of his own actions. And then he said, and I haven't seen him till now, and he died. So again, I think there's some conscious knowledge going on here. And then the last verse, Asher Chaim in 29.
ולקחתם גם את זה מעם פניי וקראו אסון. And if you take also this one from me, from my face, and a disaster happens to him, והורדתם את שיבתי ברעה שאולה, you will bring my gray head down to the netherworld in evil.
So again, I'm going to go down there in sorrow, which means that maybe he emerged a little bit and he's it's going to happen all over again. Right? It's the same story with a difference. Same story with a difference. Okay. Let's go on. One more biblical text and Rashi, and then we'll open it up.
ועתה כבואי על עבדך אבי והנער איננו איתנו. And now, when I come to your humble servant, my father, and the young man is not with us, v'nafsho keshurab v'nafsho, his life breath is entangled with his life breath. V'haya kiroto ki ein hana'ar. הורידו עבדיך את תיבת עבדך אבינו ביגון שאולה. And if he sees that the young man is not with us, he will die, and your humble servants will have brought down the gray hair of your humble servant, our father, in agony to the pit. כי עבדך ערב את הנער מעם אבי לאמור, אם לא אביאנו אליך וחקרתי לאבי כל הימים. Because your humble servant guaranteed the young man from my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, I will have sinned to my father forever. ועתה ישב נא עבדך תחת הנער עבד לאדוני, והנער יער עם אחיו. And now let your humble servant remain here in place of the young man as a slave to the Lord, so that the young man can go up with his brother.
So Judah is offering himself up as a kind of korban in this situation, so that the story won't happen as it did before.
כי איך אעלה אל אבי והנער איננו איתי, פן אראה ורע אשר ימצא את אבי. Because how can I go up to my father and the young man is not with me, lest I see the evil that finds my father?
So I can't bear witness to this again. I can't see my father destroyed like this again. But it's interesting. It's not like, how can I abandon my brother? How can I, it's not the act itself that he seems to be having a problem with. It's the effect on his father and seeing the effect on his father and maybe tolerating his own guilt. Okay, so let me look at Rashi. So I will serve as a guarantee, as surety for the lad. Im tomar, lama ani nechnas litigar yoter mishar achai. So should you ask why I enter into the contest or champion his cause more strongly than my other brothers? Hem kulam mibachutz. Then I tell you, I have more to lose. They all stand outside the matter. Va'ani nitkasharti b'kesher chazak. And me, I have bound myself with a very strong bond, right? B'kesher chazak, lehiyot menudah. So to be sort of outcast or excommunicated. Bivet alamot, in two worlds. So what does this mean? So he has bound himself with some kind of bond, some kind of promise here, to be excommunicated, to be outcast, to be exiled in two worlds. And I think what this means is in this world, because I'm going to be living with my own guilt for the rest of my days, knowing how I destroyed my father's life. And also in the next world, because my soul has been, I guess, tainted by sin. That's how I'm reading this. So, let's take one more minute and then I'll call on people. I'm not calling on people twice unless we really have time, which I don't think we will. So sorry about that, Beth. Let me just read 2 more verses or 3 more verses and then we will open things up. V'lo yachol Yosef litapek l'chol hanisavim alav. And Yosef could no longer restrain himself, right, before all the people who were attending, serving him. Or standing before him, Vayikra, and he called out, Hotziu kol ish me'elai. Take all the people who are around me away. V'lo amad ish ito, and no man stood with him. V'hidvada Yosef el achav, when Joseph revealed himself, made himself known to his brothers. Okay, so all his servants, all attendants gone, and there he is standing alone facing his brothers. Vayitenet kolo b'chi, and he gave his voice over to a cry, The third time he's crying since his brothers got there. Vayishma'u mitzrayim, and Egypt heard. It must have been a very loud cry. Egypt heard. What does that mean, right? Vayishma beit Paro, and all of the house of Pharaoh heard. Vayomer Yosef el achav, ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Od afichai, is my father still living? V'lo yachlu achav la'anot oto, and his brothers could not answer him. Ki nidhalu mipanav, because they were terrified. Because they were terrified from his face, from facing him. Okay, I'll do one more verse and I'll open things up. Vayomer Yosef el achav, and Yosef said to his brothers, Geshuna Eli. So here again, that approach. Come close to me. Vayigashu, and they approach. Vayomer, and he said, Ani Yosef achichem, I am Joseph your brother. Asher nachartem oti mitzrayim, that you sold me into Egypt. Okay, we'll leave that there. Stop my share. What? Okay, so 2 next verses are very important. Hold on a second, I'll just read them. What source is that? Okay, so come, Jonathan. Come, read them loud.
ועתה אל תעצבו ואל יחר בעיניכם, כי מכרתם אותי הנה, כי למחיה שלחני אלוהים לפניכם.
Okay, translate.
Then Joseph said to his brothers, come forward to me. And when they came forward, he said, I am your brother Joseph, you whom you told into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or reproach yourselves, because you sold me hither. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you.
Okay, so don't be scared, don't be distressed, don't worry about what you did, don't sort of, sink into your own guilt. God arranged all this, and why? In order to save life. Okay, Amy in Tallahassee, Alana, is someone in the room? Jonathan, okay, great, hold on, I got my little, okay, Amy!
Yay, I approve of your timer. Okay, I wanted to mention the most important woman, I believe, in the Torah, which is Sarah, which is Asher's daughter.
Sarah.
In Asher's daughter.
Asher.
She was the one who informed Jacob that Joseph was alive and ruler of Egypt. She was among the 70 to go down into Egypt. She's listed as Asher's daughter. In Numbers, she's counted on the steps of Moab. In Genesis, she's given the secret of redemption, and helps, and through the Talmud, helps locate Joseph's coffin when Moses wants to leave. She's listed among those that left Egypt. She's listed as an advisor to King David. She spoke of splitting the Red Sea waters as not walls but windows. And she was also listed among those that went from into Israel after 40 years in the desert. She had eternal life because Jacob blessed her after she told him that Joseph was alive and ruler of Egypt.
Okay, Amy, time's up. Thank you for bringing Sarah Bat Asher into the room. Sarah Bat Asher is a great midrashic figure, and she's supposed to sort of basically live eternally and serves a kind of prophetic function in many generations. Thank you, Amy. Okay, Lana.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. So I was thinking about the Or HaChaim describes the Vayigash in the beginning, and then the repetition of Vayigash as an opening of the heart. And what strikes me is that Yehuda, even though he doesn't know he's doing it, intuitively, what he's doing is he's enlarging Joseph's story.
Wait, I can't hear you. I don't know why it's let me just put this down. Let's see. Oh no, I don't have any down here. Can we put that louder? Do you know how to do it, Jeremy?
You're not stopping the timer.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Okay, sorry, Alana.
I'll try again. So what Yehuda does is he enlarges Yosef's story. Yosef has been carrying around his own trauma as his own trauma, and Yehuda brings in the pain of his father. And so it changes the way that Yosef carries his story. It's no longer his pain that he names the son after wanting to forget. Instead, the heart opening for Yosef, his story is filled, it changes. Kind of open it.
Alana, I'm sorry, I think you have a sound problem on your end.
Absolutely.
But I think we got the major point, which is Judah's holding not so much his pain right now, but his father's pain.
Yosef. I meant to say Yosef.
Oh, you meant Yosef. Got it.
Yeah, that Yosef, can you hear me any better? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so Yosef has held his story for 22 years in this particular way, which often is the source of our suffering, when it becomes rigidified. And part of what Yehuda does is he brings in the suffering of Yosef's father. And that opens Yosef's spirit. It opens his story so that it's no longer just about his own trauma that he wants to forget, but it's about compassion and feeling and grief, more importantly, grief for his father. And that changes Yosef. It changes how he embodies, lives, and is constricted and in prison and in the pit of his own pain.
Yeah, thank you, Alana. And it actually allows him to move into feeling. One of the things I talked about last night is how the increasing taking of responsibility on the part of the brothers, and here radical responsibility on the part of Judah, allowed Joseph to move into feeling.
Yes,
right? and to come out.
And the first thing I said, I don't know if you could hear me, but the Or HaChaim has a beautiful interpretation of Vayigash as a opening of the heart, of coming.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, I think we're going to go to some people in the room. Hi. Let's see how we're doing with time. Okay, so Paul, sorry. Like your name. No? Tony. No. You didn't have a thing? No? Oh, okay. Jonathan, could you come into the room? Jonathan, here, stand in back of me, Jonathan. Stand in back of me, no?
Okay. So I wanted to say a couple of things. So one is that dismember, remember. Aviva Zornberg says beautifully about this Joseph sentence.
Wait, can people online hear Jonathan? Because he's right outside the room.
Yeah, I'm shouting.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay.
So Aviva Zornberg talks about dismember and remember. Since Yosef is my second name, so I studied it a little bit more. And the notion of like how he is sort of by sharing, by coming out of the closet, but as we said yesterday, by his emotions, he's actually not only remembering, but also taking part in returning to the family. Like taking an integral role as part of the leader of the family. I wanted to say about Avdecha that it's a lot to do also with Joseph and Jacob changing roles of who's God's servant at this moment of time. And then the last thing I wanted to say is about the zooming out. It's like a Zen moment of Joseph that he foresees already his brothers having all these mixed feelings, and he says to them, breathe into them, let's let go of the feelings, let's think about the future and like the way that God wanted this to happen.
Yeah, he's got the long view. And to me, what's astonishing, and I was telling my chavruta about this earlier, Rabbi Sharon, that Judah's still carrying the pain of not being seen by his father, he and his brothers. I mean, it's kind of shocking how much Jacob doesn't see Leah's children, right? The sons and even more so the daughter. And that's what drove them to murderousness the first time. And this time, Judah is behaving differently and trying to save life. Right? He's clearly not repeating what happened the first time. He's doing the opposite.
It's his tshuva.
It's his tshuva. Yeah, it's his tshuva. Even though I think, and I was saying this to Sharon this morning, Jacob doesn't seem to have changed at all. Like, I'm really mad at Jacob for how he doesn't see the 10. I mean, it's just horrible and heartbreaking how he doesn't see his children. Okay, Aya.
Vayigash is not just approach, it's also to collide, התנגשות. So I think maybe Yehuda says, okay, we came here, we were blamed, we went back, we came back, and he wants to break this cycle. He says, enough is enough, we have to move forward from here. And because he's the only one who knows how it feels to lose a child, he feels, the responsibility.
Because he lost 2 children.
Sure.
Ooh,
Right,
nice.
right.
So
And
he says we have
he
to-
lost, so Judah is the one who lost 2 children and learned
So he can't
something
say,
about
like,
taking
"I will not
responsibility
do
from
this for my
Tamar."
father, he lost one,
Yeah.
that's bad enough.
Yeah.
And that's what makes him know Vayigash is to break this cycle and to go forward.
Beautiful, very powerful, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Batya, and then I'm gonna go back to Zoom.
So I've been thinking about what the Baal Shem Tov said about you have to go down before you go up. And that, have you ever thought, I have thought of if this and this had not happened to me, then I would not have worked so hard to come out of it. And so I just wonder how many people think like that and how important it is to really, in other words, my karma or with this or that or whatever, but that was a good point for me before this. And fortunately, this happens to reinforce it for me.
Thank you, Bachin, right on time. So, I was listening to, and I think I gave you the link below in resources, a Rabbi David Foreman who was talking about how does God speak to us in our times, right? So in the Torah, God spoke to people, and then God spoke to, there was revelation at Sinai, and spoke to the whole people, and then spoke to the prophets, and spoke to Moshe, and then Moshe would speak to the people. In our time, perhaps it's God speaks to us through the patterns of our lives, right? And that's happening here in the Joseph story. Like the pattern is repeating itself. And we even have resonances from other stories. And then Joseph steps right into the pattern, understanding it to reverse it. So do we understand the voice of God in our own stories? That's definitely sort of process of understanding that maybe started with Freud, but maybe also really started with the Torah. So, okay. So Richard online.
Thanks, Shabbat Shalom. So I'm actually speaking out of Elizabeth's mouth more than mine.
Oh, good. How come we can't see Elizabeth?
She has taught me enormous numbers of lessons about Judah. And it's fascinating that he is the one that steps forward out of all the brothers after he was instrumental in having Joseph being sent down to Egypt.
Right.
And it's something very interesting about the layout of these recent parshiot with the Judah and Tamar story sort of thrown in the middle of the Joseph story. And when I first read that, I said, what's that doing in here? And Elizabeth has taught me why. That is the story in which Judah understands his own capacity to commit sin, to be immoral, to be wrong. Now it's Levirate marriage, which we don't really pay much attention to now, but in the time was really, really important. And when Tamar traps him as a prostitute, takes some signals of his using her services, and then shows them to him, he doesn't get angry that he's been caught. He basically goes, oh my, that's me. That's me. He admits his treachery.
Your time's up, so just finish your thought.
Yeah, well, he admits his treachery, and now he's doing the same thing here. He's the one that approached Joseph, not any of the other brothers, to basically beg for forgiveness.
Yeah, beautiful, Richard. Thank you. Yeah, so he really took in the lessons that he learned then. I mean, he lost his 2 sons and then learned from Tamar something about facing a situation and understanding one's own culpability in it.
Was he doing something?
Miriam Margot. Sorry, I'm going to keep going.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Happy New
Shabbat
Year.
Shalom.
So last week you gave us a reference on from Rachel Annisfeld, who is related to Rabbi Sharon, and it was on Miketz and Vayigash, and it was very eye-opening. I always wondered why Joseph waited till then to say, "Is my father alive?" and didn't find out earlier. And the last thing he had heard from his father was disapproval about his dream and sending him to his brothers, even though he had kept their jealousy in mind. And he didn't have that confidence in his father's love that he should have. And so he named his kid, God's made me forget my childhood home. And only now does he realize that his father has been mourning him, that his father thought he was torn by beasts. And so I'm going to read a little bit from this. Yosef shakes out all the pain he was holding from the past and returns to the present, fully himself, fully alive and feeling for the first time in a long time. I am Yosef. And then with the pain of lost time still in him and an eye to the future, is my father still alive? Can I still connect to him and love him and feel his love, which I had written off for so long? Yosef returns to himself.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for reading that. Okay, Jay.
I'm still wrestling with this reveal in terms of the attribution Yosef has, and with all this trauma. Don't be distressed. This is all part of God's plan. And yet, to some of the other comments about his own coping with trauma. So is this all denial? Was this an attribution to kind of just forestall the emotional connection? I don't know. I'm still puzzling, but I'm still stuck with this attribution. No worry. Don't worry. Don't be distressed. It's all part of God's plan to save lives. We're cool here. And I'm wrestling with that.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Jay. So the term spiritual bypass, is this emotional bypass? Or maybe it's spiritual bypass, right? If people could shut off their cell phones. Is he really dealing with what happened, or is he jumping to a kind of like spiritual answer so he doesn't have to deal with the pain of the situation? Or is he really protecting? I mean, he's protecting his brothers. He's seeing they're terrified. How much can he connect to them in that, right, if they're so terrified? What can he say to sort of allay their terror so that he can connect with them? I think that's another possibility. I don't know the answer. Alana. Oy, we have 3 minutes left and I have to end on time because I'm going up to services. Oy.
Sorry, I wanted to two things. One, to build on what Richard was saying about Tamar being this critical thing where Judah sees himself. And I was thinking about that as like, maybe that there are these incidents of women, they're not mentioned in the same way, like the matriarchs, but there are Tamar, these other women that play this critical role in reflecting to the men kind of what's happened. And so is it like Judah is able to see himself because a woman sort of shows him something. So I was just thinking that is maybe women are still there. The other question I had sort of related to what Jay
was. So Tamara's sort of all over the story, you're saying.
Yeah. And maybe she's the pivotal character, not actually Judah. He's the result of that. Yeah. The other thing of just what Jay was saying, I was thinking about also later in the parsha when it says that Jacob says, okay, that God comes to him in a dream and says, go to Egypt. Like this idea that it's ordained, but then in the next book, they're in slavery. It just, I don't know, it feels sort of like, is that, it's just, I don't know, it seems strange. Why does God tell them they have to go down there if they're going to go into slavery?
Oh, well, that's been predestined as told to Abraham in chapter 15, I think it is. Genesis chapter 15, God tells Abraham, your people are going to go down and be strangers in a strange land for 400 years. So we already know that this has been, preordained.
So they're just going along with the plan.
I don't know that they know that this is the plan, but this is what's happening. They need to go to Egypt. That's a whole other conversation, which we will talk about in future weeks. Very unfortunately, it is 9:43. So, oh God, what are we going to do here? You know what? I'm going to take one more comment and then sort of wrap up, or at least give you a blessing to go on your way to Shabbat. Okay, Daniel. Daniel, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wanted to just expand a little bit on what Alana Klugman was saying about the story that Joseph himself is hearing from Judah and the way it opened up so much in his own heart, especially the piece about his father. I would expect what Alana was saying, that if this was the therapeutic moment for Joseph, he was actually being told so much of his story. And as a client in therapy, to hear one's own story being repeated to oneself in such a compassionate, beautiful, holy way is so therapeutic, that sense of being mirrored and validated.
Love that. Thank you. So hearing your story told in such a compassionate way, and that itself sort of shifts things inside you. And I also want to pick up in closing, I'm sorry I couldn't call on everybody. You know, also what Alana was saying about how like pain gets hardened within us and we get sort of stuck in patterns, but those patterns themselves are telling. And what are they telling, right? They're telling us that perhaps, even though we're in the same situation, or it feels like the same situation, like Judah, we can step up potentially in a different way, right? It amazes me that Judah does what he does, given his father's betrayal of him and his brothers and his sister, and abandonment, so to speak, of his brothers and his mother and his sister, right? He's able to somehow accept the pain of the family and act differently. And I think that acceptance, even though we might say, oh my God, how can you accept something horrible like that? How can you, like, I'm not going to accept that. But the truth is that acceptance gives him tremendous power to navigate the situation and help it become different from what it was. So I bless you all with the ability to accept and act and sort of move into that sense of feeling and into like who you are, right? I'm Yosef, right? I am Joseph, right? So, you know, how can we claim the fullness of our own stories, each one of us? Okay, everybody. Much blessings.